Hey everybody, today we're going to be looking at the patch notes for backpack battles. They do these basically every single week, and I figure it updates so frequently, I should probably talk about them whenever they happen. So this is patch 0.6.1, and this is a big experimental change that they're basically slowing down the game, is my understanding of it. But let's look at all the changes that they have made. First off is a new item, which is a lump of coal, which isn't really that strong. It isn't really that going to change the meta that much. You can get it very first round, it's common, and it works just like a gem slot. You can put it in your weapon, you can put it in your bag, or you can put it in armor. And for a weapon, it has a 60% chance to deal an extra damage. So it's kind of like, it's a worse whetstone than you can just put in your weapon. So not going to be that great, but I guess early you can put it in a pan, you can put it on a sword. I don't think it's going to make that big of a difference in early game. I don't think you're going to be wanting to spend 2 gold on this. I think like garlic would be more impactful than just 60% chance at extra damage. But the one thing I think it is going to be really good at is in the backpack. Every 3 seconds it's going to gain a random buff and inflict a random debuff. In the armor slot, you can gain 3 armor and you only resist 1 debuff, and that's only at the start of battle. Doesn't happen multiple times. But in the backpack, I kind of think it's going to be really good, or not really good. It works alongside with like the Jin's lamp, sort of. Because gaining a random buff is basically what the Jin's lamp does, except it's more selective. And once you have all those buffs, it'll then apply the plus 27 damage to whatever weapon it's pointing at. And I think the coal can kind of help speed that process up. I don't know if it'll actually be that great, though. And inflicting a random debuff is also kind of strong. We'll have to see. It's definitely not super impactful, but it is kind of cool. I think the armor and weapon slots could use maybe a change, but maybe the backpack will see something. Okay, before posting this, I actually realized that the coal is after 3 seconds in the bag, not every 3 seconds. So basically everything I say about the coal, it is much, much worse. It does not work every 3 seconds, probably doesn't work with the Jin lamp, probably just isn't that good of an item. The next update is all of the balance classes. So the biggest thing is slowing down the pace of the game, and I think making forced builds less easy. Both classes now start with more bags, more gold, and less items. So we'll concede this one, start a new unranked one. The Ranger now starts with 2 bags, and then instead of having a wooden sword, only has banana and clover. And then if we go to the Reaper, I think it no longer has... Yeah, it just has 1 bag, and it no longer has the dagger. And I think this is a good change, because I think at least in Ranger, you always have the wooden sword. You're looking for whetstone and another wooden sword or a broom basically every single time on turn 1. But now your options aren't as restricted. Same with Reaper. The dagger seems kind of weird starting with Reaper, and most of the times you just sell it. And this basically is the Reaper class, is poison alongside the storage coffin. And then in the Ranger, the luck is the main thing, and then you can build around it. So I think this is a good change. You can have different starts, and you're not forced to going the exact same thing every single round. Like now we don't have to just find pan. And I mean, dagger kind of felt weird anyways. So I think that's a great change. And the next change is reroll cost for round is now scaled up after 3 and 9 rerolls. I don't like this. I think I don't like this at all. So basically if we reroll all of our money after 3 rerolls, goes to 2. And then after 9 rerolls, which we don't even have money for. Yeah, we can't even see. It'll go to 3. And I think this is to prevent people from forcing a build every single time, which I think is good. I think there should be more variability. You shouldn't be able to just force every single build. But I don't know if that's the way to do it. Because let's say you have 90% of a build done, and then you are just trying to find 1 more piece, and you're just spending all of your money every single round, and it wouldn't make sense to go anything else. I think in the early to mid-game, forcing builds should be more punished, because at least in last patch, the Ranger would just force Karagubert, and it would be strong. And it was super easy to do. You could just keep rolling, you could find whetstones, you could kind of manipulate stuff with cards to find rare items. And that kind of felt bad, but also, that was the only competition that Ranger could have against Reaper. So you kind of had to go that to be able to keep up. I don't know. I don't know if this is the last thing they'll do with this, but I think it's in the right direction. I think restricting force builds is probably good, but I don't know if this is the way to do it. And the next update is subclasses are now picked in round 7, down from round 8. And I think this I think this goes directly against this second bullet point. Because subclasses, basically, you're deciding on what build you're wanting to go. So if you're going Ranger, you're like, I am definitely going crit build. I have to commit to this. But now you have to commit a turn earlier, so then you're already forcing your build a turn earlier. And then after you've already forced it, your rolls are going to cost more. I think the subclasses, I don't think this makes sense. It feels weird to make you decide on your build earlier in the game when they don't want you deciding on a build. Especially because round 7 is super early. You can pivot so easily to different builds. So I don't like committing to it. I think. I don't know. And then the Fancy Fencing Rapier goes down to 1.7 attack speed. And in 0.6, I don't know if you can... You can't look at the past versions. But in 0.6.0, the Fencing Rapier went from 1.9 down to 1.8, and they buffed it once again. And I think this is a pretty good change. I haven't seen a lot of Fencing Rapiers in the last patch, but even a couple weeks ago, it was pretty strong. It just kind of got overshadowed by the Carrot Goobert build. But now with 2 buffs in a row, and I haven't really played it or seen it last week, it's probably pretty strong. Because now even if you miss your attack, you're attacking much faster. And the Mana Orb has removed the mana limit and overflow effect. And I think this is a huge buff. I think mana got really, really good this patch because what the orb did was once it had 10 mana, any overflow mana, it would just deal 2 damage. And 2 damage, it kind of adds up, but not really. So I think just having excess mana to be able to use your staffs, to be able to use your books, and stuff like that is probably much better than just a tiny amount of damage every single time the Mana Orb goes off. And then same with the Mana Thirst. The Mana Thirst no longer has its mana limit. So after 10, it used to just not gain any more mana, and it would steal 2 health. But now every single attack, no matter how much mana you have, the Mana Thirst is going to continue gaining mana. Which I think, same thing as the Mana Orb, the 2 extra damage that you were getting in place of mana gain is probably worse. I think you would much rather have 1 mana than 2 damage in a build that revolves around mana. But also, the Mana Thirst not only got that, it has its damage is increased with its vampirism. So it used to steal, every 20 mana you used, it would steal 12 health. And now it's 12 health plus your vampirism. And Mana Thirst worked really well alongside the Staff of Unhealing, at least in the build I did and showed a few days ago. But I think Mana Thirst could be really strong, especially around a vampirism build. I think Mana's definitely got a huge buff from these 2 things. The only thing that could be kind of a nerf is the book. I don't really know, though, because the book would work every 10 mana you get, and a lot of things like the Mana Thirst and Mana Orb would quit gaining you mana once you hit 10, so your books would go off less frequently. But now you have no cap on your mana, so your books might go just off very, very quickly. Every single time your book goes off cooldown, the next one goes off, and you probably want it going off later in the round than early. I don't think that'll affect it too much. I think mana is in a good spot right now, or is in a better spot. And then Falcon Blade Carrot Goobert build has been nerfed pretty drastically. The empowerment duration is down from 5 seconds to 4 seconds on Carrot Goobert, and the Falcon Blade attack speed is increased. It was even increased last patch. I think it was the attack speed that was increased, or maybe it was the damage was decreased. The Falcon Blade was nerfed in that last patch. Build was still strong, and now it's nerfed on both sides. So I think Ranger is not in the best of spots right now, but at least Falcon Blade and Carrot Goobert aren't as oppressive as they were. I think Ranger needs some sort of buff, though. And then also Fatigue build has been nerfed, and I haven't tried it yet. I don't know if this is that big of a nerf. Yeah, going up half a second on struggles as well as the Corrupted Crystal is a decent amount, but it's still going off multiple times before Fatigue even hits. And once Fatigue hit in Fatigue build, the damage was way too fast and way too much. So I think the small amount of nerfs to this, the damage is still going to be extremely strong. It could not be, though. you could have a chance of being able to do enough damage. But I think once you hit fatigue build is still going to be extremely strong. And then Piercing Arrow has changed its star shape and the luck chances from 50% to 40%, which I think is worse. Because the way the star shape, I'll put it on screen right now, is there are 3 things that activate the Piercing Arrow now as opposed to the previous 4. So not only is the luck chance lower, there are less items that can trigger the Piercing Arrow. I think just changing the star shape would be good enough, or just changing the luck chance. I think nerfing it in 2 facets probably makes it a lot weaker, and probably didn't need to be too down that much, especially with Ranger not being super strong and mainly being strong because of Carrot Goobert. So you nerfed 3 aspects of Carrot Goobert now. And then Reflect effects now reflect timed buff and debuff stacks with the same duration, such as Ruby Egg, Ruby Whelp, and Mr. Struggles. And I think what this is I think previously, if it was like apply something for 2 seconds, the Ruby Egg would just reflect it and it would be permanent. So I think this is a big nerf. I think that's how it worked. I'm not entirely sure. But let me know if that is not the case. I think it's just a small nerf to timed debuffs that were permanently reflected, but now are timed reflected. And then some small changes. Steel Goobert has been buffed from 14 to 16. I don't think Steel Goobert is that strong. I've seen some people talking about using Steel Goobert with Pan, maybe Pandemonium or Excalibur, and I mean, 14 to 16 isn't that big of a change, but if Steel Goobert was strong in that build, it definitely still is now. But I don't think it changes the meta at all. Same with the Death Scythe. The Death Scythe works in Poison Bomb, and Poison Bomb damage does not come from the Scythe itself. It comes from the potions. So the stamina cost on the Scythe isn't that big of a deal. Deck of Cards is a weird change. It gives 2 luck at the start of battle. I think the reason they did this is because Deck of Cards did nothing. At least with the gym, the Box of Riches, the gym bag, or the gym box, you would get a gym every single turn, and you could sell it and gain 1 gold every turn, worst case scenario. But the Deck of Cards, you buy it, it provides no value whatsoever unless you buy a second card. So I think this was them wanting to add value out of the Deck of Cards. But adding luck in the Reaper class seems strange, but it also seems really good. Because there are a lot of weapons in the Reaper class that have 90% or 95% accuracy. Like the Dark Blade, or Dark Saber, Lightsaber, 95%. Let me find out. I wrote down other things that have the extra accuracy. Yeah, Thornblade, and the Mana Thirst is now up to 100%, so it's not that big of a deal here. But it definitely makes a lot. I mean, 2 luck helps a lot. For 3 gold as well, that's better luck for dollar than anything in the Ranger class that wants luck the most. And then Lucky Pig, chances 20% up to 25%, which will probably make a little bit of a difference. Maybe it'll make hammer builds a little bit better in Ranger. Maybe it's to help counter out the Piercing Arrow. It'll still be weaker, the combo will. But I think this may just be to try and boost up the Ranger class a little bit. But those are all the changes. There are some fixes. Crit numbers are now big. There's some quality of life changes. But I think the biggest thing here is Carrot Goobert, I think, was nerfed very heavily. I think Carrot Goobert is probably still strong, but definitely not the strongest Ranger build at the moment. And the strongest Ranger build could potentially be the Fancy Fencing Rapier. It has been buffed twice. I'm not too sure, though. This might be the sleeper weapon, just because it's been buffed twice in a row and it hasn't really been played, so people don't really know how strong it is. Fatigue has also been nerfed, and I don't think Fatigue is nerfed that bad. I think Fatigue is still going to be really strong. I think Fancy Fencing Rapier will be strong. And then I think probably Mana has a huge resurgence, will be extremely strong. The Staff of Unhealing build is already one of the best builds in my opinion. And then the Thornblade Vampirism build is extremely strong. And then Lightsaber and Darksaber. Those are probably all the best builds at the moment, with Carrot Goobert falling out and Mana build rising up, as well as potentially the Rapier. And then the new Cole, I think the only thing that could be fun trying it out with is alongside the Jin Lamp. Might make it a little bit more consistent. It might be worth trying out if you get a lot of. And I assume the Shovel can dig the Cole up as well. But those are all the changes. Pretty cool changes. The biggest thing that I don't really know if I can predict, is just the change in pace, making the subclasses be grabbed earlier, rerolls cost more, and the classes now start with more bags, more gold, and less items. I think force builds are going to be harder to pull off, and subclass items are going to be less impactful because I don't think it's going to be as easy to force that early. So the meta may change, especially with decks that like the Potion Bomb that need a lot of the same item. You can't just roll all of your money to find those. So we shall see. But I think trying out Mana Orb and Fencing Rapier will be my first two go-tos. And we'll see what they change from there. But that has been version 0.6.1. Let me know what you think of the changes. Let me know what you think has been nerfed to the ground. And let me know what you think is going to be the best build for this week. Thanks for watching.